Bradley University is putting on a production of their own. John Proctor is the Villain is a show that's growing in popularity with dozens of productions already staged nationwide. Scott Konoff and Victoria Rusniak from the Theater Arts Department at Bradley are here to shed light on the show. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
So glad to have you guys here. So tell me about this story. What's the storyline?
You go.
So this takes place in northern Georgia in 2018 in the height of the Me Too movement coming really to the forefront. And it centers around an English class that is studying the Crucible. And throughout the show, the characters have a very different take on who is the hero and who is the villain of the story. And they really go through and find out a lot about themselves and a lot about this play that they're studying and about each other.
Wow. So why did you choose this show to put on?
We have a history in recent years of looking for new plays by women playwrights. And this is one of the best that I have read in years. And it took us 2 years to get the rights to do it. And I think that it is for a cast of primarily young women. This is a very powerful and relatable play. I also feel that its educational setting is really important, and its background with the surge of the Me Too movement in 2018 in a very small rural town makes a strong statement about how issues of empowerment and women's voices are urgent everywhere. Big communities, small communities. And the play is very powerful. It covers some very serious issues, but it's also hilarious because it's a play about a group of 16-year-old girls.
And that leads me to my next question. How do you cover such serious topics and make it funny? How do you balance the severity and still have that entertainment element?
Well, Kimberly Bellflower, the playwright, is an enormously skillful writer. And she's coming from a staunchly feminist place, but there's humor in every aspect of life. And when these girls get going in this class, it's pretty hilarious. So they're adolescents, they're learning to find their own voices. They're arguing about who has the right to speak and finding that everybody does and who gets to be believed. So the commitment to that struggle for these young women and how they come to discover their own voices it's very powerful, but it's also very funny.
Yeah.
Just it's 16-year-old girls talking.
So Victoria, from your perspective, tell me what it's like to play in this. Well, first tell us your character, and then how you kind of can relate to what's happening in the show to real everyday life.
I play Shelby, who is a very outspoken girl, and she does not back down no matter what anyone around her says that they think that she should say or she should do or what's appropriate for her to be able to comment on, especially with this small rural town. She's kind of an outlier. She doesn't conform to what she's supposed to do. And so playing her, I find a lot of aspects of myself in her because I've always been someone who's not afraid to say what I'm thinking, even if people around me are not necessarily agreeing, just with a lot of my viewpoints and the way that I go about things. And I think that for everyone in the cast, we found little bits of ourselves in every character we're playing, especially the girls, because what they go through and just the trials their friendships go through, the harrowing experiences that each of them take on, there is something that every woman has been through with that. And whether you've gone through it personally or you've known someone who's gone through it, it's heartbreaking how often things like this happen. And it's comforting to have someone write about such a serious topic with such care. And it also, just like we were saying with the comedy, they're 16-year-old girls. They don't know necessarily how to go about this stuff. They don't know exactly how to talk about it. They just know they need to. And they're finding their voice and how they know that they are allowed to speak and they will not let anyone silence them.
Now, I'm sure going over this show and practices, rehearsals, running the script sparked a lot of conversations, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what are you guys talking about? What do those conversations look like amongst you guys?
Well, it's a variety of conversations, mostly the there's a lot of nuts and bolts. We're trying to crack open the event of each scene, and so that's sort of tradecraft. But more, I guess, more tellingly, this is one of the best casts I've ever assembled at Bradley for a production. We have a lot of seniors in the show, and so identifying the issues. What's this scene about for you? What is this scene about for your friendship? How do you negotiate the situation you're in? Where are you coming from personally? What is your personal awareness of this kind of issue in your own life? What's at stake? What is most urgent? These are normal questions that we ask in the rehearsal process. In this case, I was very happy to let these young women lead me, because they know a whole lot more about.
And you know what, you are just helping me with my next question, because I was going to ask you, as a man who's over this production, how are you putting a piece in yourself without kind of distorting or downplaying the issues that are being discussed?
Well, I've learned through a long marriage when to keep my mouth shut and when to ask questions. And these guys are so talented and so smart that they have told me much more about these characters and these situations than I could ever come up with on my own. And that's part of my approach as a director also, and as a teacher, is asking the right questions and letting students make the discoveries. And in this case, these students have led me right down the line.
Amazing, amazing. All right, so for people who want to see it, what are the specifics here? Okay,
we open Wednesday the 9th. We run through the 13th, 5 performances, Wednesday through Saturday at 7:30 p.m., Sunday at 2 p.m. at the Hartman Center for the Performing Arts on the Bradley campus. And viewers can find tickets at bradley.edu/theater, or they can call 309-677-2650. And they can come by the theater too.
Well, there you have it. Sky Victoria, thank you so much for coming in. Hopefully, people learn a lot from this show and they are as entertained as it sounds. So,
thank you.
Have a great production.
Thanks for Sean.
Thank you.
Of course. If you or someone you know would like to join us on In the Know, just head to 25newsnow.com. You want to follow the features tab to In the Know and submit the form there.